And there it is. Real Madrid 1, Juventus 0. Los Blancos progress to the quarterfinals of the FIFA Club World Cup. They took care of business. They were my favourites. They were most people's favourites today. It wasn't the easiest victory. It wasn't also the cleanest, best performance from Real Madrid. But if you look at the game through, for what it was, the whole 90, Real Madrid were the dominant side. Real Madrid created more chances. Real Madrid, took their chance. And they are now through. And they will face either Dortmund or Monterrey in the quarterfinals. We'll find out the answer to that later tonight or earlier in the morning, whichever way you want to look at it. And yeah, I will give Juventus some credit. First, I'm going to talk a bit about Juventus, then I'll talk about Real Madrid. So Juventus, for me, were really not up to my expectations of how I thought they'd play against Manchester City. They were really subpar. They weren't competitive at all. They had none of the ball, pretty much, created no chances. Even though they scored more than they did today, there was no point during that game except for those 2 minutes maybe where Koopmeiners scored, where you thought that Juventus were going to get anything out of this game. That was different today. And I think 5 tactical changes made the difference there. Starting players like Yildiz, Conceição, Cambiasso, Thuram, and Kolo Muani definitely made the difference today in terms of performance. Because with them in the squad, Juventus were just not only more sound at the back, but stronger going forward and created many more chances and looked more dangerous. And in fact, I'll give them that whole first half. I actually think the first half, especially the first 30 minutes, if we look at which team was better or on the front foot, it was Juventus. They created more chances. They were limiting Real Madrid to having to shoot outside the box. They weren't getting many, balls into the box, Real Madrid. And if they did try to get into the box, Regani or Thuram or any big player in the box would just clear it away. Or Di Gregorio, who had a great game, would collect. And they created probably the best chances of the first half with the Kolo Muani one-on-one, which was just brilliant play. It was a great counter-attack between Kolo Muani and Yildiz. Obviously, the 2 players who didn't start against City started today. You saw the difference in quality. And, Kolo Muani, though, has to put that away. I think a top finisher there in Kolo Muani's situation plays it to one of the corners and tries to just pass it past Courtois. Kolo Muani tries a chip. It wasn't the worst technique. It was actually a pretty decent finish, but it just missed. And I think he would have had more chance of scoring if he'd just been a bit more composed and tried to place it past the keeper. But, that was right at the start of the game. So I thought Juventus, they're looking good. They're going to go for it. And they did. Kenan Yildiz had a go for his own. He had a nice dribble. And the shot, which is deflected off Tchouaméni, I think, just misses the goal. Goes out for a corner. But, it was a great run. And Yildiz was just so dangerous today, as he has been this tournament. They had another little chance with Conceição with a head inside the box. But, that was about it for Juventus in the first half. Real Madrid came back with some chance for themselves. But again, most of them were just from outside the box. And Di Gregorio was making many saves today. And he kept Juventus in the game for most of the game. But as we know, second half, the man who's been on fire all tournament, Garcia, up top, gets the goal for Real Madrid. Now, look, it was a great finish. The cross obviously comes in from Trent, who was having a bit of a quiet game, but that certainly lifts his confidence up. It's a great assist, great ball in. And that header is a true striker's header. Beats Di Gregorio, who had been having a great game. It wasn't the easiest thing to do, but he put so much power on it. And, of course, even if it was placed pretty close to Di Gregorio, he had no chance to save it because it had so much pace on it. And look, for me, Real Madrid, the frustrating thing today for them before that goal was that for me, they were all just trying to be the heroes. I think individually, players like Vinicius, Valverde, Güler, Bellingham, they were trying to, have the moment, shoot from outside the box. Tchouaméni, even Huijsen had a go. And although a lot of them went close to going in, look at the goal they scored, guys. It's a goal where Trent does what Trent does best, playing a ball into the cross, and they've got the striker there to finish it. And the other best chance was the Bellingham one, where he plays a nice 1-2 with Valverde, and he just kind of looks down and just, I think if he looked up, assessed his options, maybe he could have taken a touch or shot with his left, but he just kind of hits it and hopes. But that was still, for me, up until then, the best chance of the game for Real Madrid. So I thought if they just did that a bit more, they would have had 2 or 3 today. But no, even after the goal, they were still trying long shots and it wasn't really working out, And Di Gregorio, give him credit because some of them were good long shots. And some of them were taking deflections and this and that, but he was saving them all. But then that second half for me, Juventus fell off a little bit. They weren't looking as dangerous. They didn't create as many chances. Real Madrid just took control of possession, took control of the ball, and especially after the goal, that was that. It was Real Madrid's game, and Kylian Mbappe comes back on for his first game in a while, and it's good to see. Didn't really affect the game much, but it's good to see him back, and he's definitely going to be featuring. It will be interesting to see who Xabi Alonso chooses, though. Is he going to go with the man in form, Gonzalo Garcia, the new kid on the block, or is he going to pick Kylian Mbappe, who we know can score goals for fun, has been scoring goals for fun? It'll be interesting. I think if Real Madrid play PSG in the semis, I think you have to start Mbappe there. Maybe he can play both of them by putting Mbappe on the wing, but it gets complicated, guys. So I'm not sure. But yeah, Xabi Alonso has some decision-making to do there. But obviously that's in 1 game time after the quarterfinals. So we'll have to see if PSG can beat Bayern and if Real Madrid can beat Dortmund and Monterrey, which to be honest, they both should. They're both the favourites for those games. And now for me, it's interesting because before the tournament, for me, even before any of the games in the group stages or anything like that, there were 2 favourites for me, 2 clear favourites as a neutral, not as a Chelsea fan. I would have said Real Madrid and PSG. Real Madrid just because it's their heritage. They're obviously going to go for these trophies. They've got the best players in the world. And although they haven't fully clicked this season, they have to click at some point. And I think with a new manager as well, it's the best time to do it before the new season. PSG, because obviously they won the Champions League. How could you write them off? How could you not have them as your favourites, pretty much? Then you had some dark horses. You had Bayern, obviously, Juventus, Chelsea, City. City were probably more, maybe my third favourite. And then after the tournament started, all the group stage games, Man City quickly became one of my top 3 and up there with Real Madrid and PSG. In fact, maybe above them. Because PSG had the blip against Botafogo, Real Madrid had the blip against Al Hilal, and City had no blips. But now, City have blipped against Al Hilal as well. And worse than Real Madrid, they lost to them in extra time. And they're out. So that's really interesting because for me, the 2 clear favourites are on the same side of the bracket. So the final is not going to have both of them. It very well could have if PSG had finished top in their group, but they didn't. So yeah, it's complicated to say who's going to go through to the final out of them 2, assuming that those 2 reach the semi-final, which I do think they will. Right now, my money would be on Real Madrid slightly, but PSG for me have been class. I think Real Madrid in a 1 game, if it was 2 legs, PSG might have the upper hand in a sense. But Real Madrid, I think 1 game, they're capable of just producing brilliance. With players like Mbappe, Vinicius, all it takes is for something to go right for Real Madrid to get a goal. That's it. And then they go and go up. And then obviously, football's won by scoring goals. PSG have players who are capable of that, but they don't have a resume like the ones on Real Madrid, if you know what I mean. Like the Viniciuses, who's a big game player, scored in 2 Champions League finals. Mbappe, another big game player. Bellingham, another big game player. The whole team's big game players. So my money would be on Real Madrid, but if I were you guys, I wouldn't bet on it because it go either way, like easily. And then it'll be interesting to see who they play in the final. Obviously, for me, I'm hoping it'll be Chelsea. But, this tournament right now, we've learned that we can't write anyone off or put anyone in a certain category before they get there. But yeah, the game today really went about as expected. Real Madrid players still adapting to that Xabi Alonso system. Juventus stepping it up when they had to, but coming short just because of the margin in quality between Real Madrid and Juventus, which we all know is there. And Juventus are going to have to address before the next season. They've been making some questionable decisions. And actually, Huijsen, for me, was the perfect example of this because he was really, really solid today for Real Madrid. He was, playing passes successfully, almost scored, just obviously kept a clean sheet as well. And that's a guy who was on Juventus' books this time last year. And they sold him out to Bournemouth for like pennies. And then they bring in Lloyd Kelly for like 30 million, 25 million. And he starts a game like this and he gets absolutely outshone by Huijsen. I'm not saying Lloyd Kelly had an awful game, but come on, guys. Come on. You cannot expect to start Lloyd Kelly in the club. I'm still so confused by that signing. I'm actually perplexed as to what Juve were thinking there. Fair enough selling Huijsen because maybe you didn't think he was going to reach his potential, this and that. Still poor decision. But Lloyd Kelly, guys, as the replacement. Lloyd Kelly for more than what you sold Huijsen for is crazy. But yeah, man, Real Madrid have got a player in Huijsen. And a player in Trent as well. And a player in Gonzalo Garcia. So they've got some play to the new season. It's not like they're going to go in with the same squad as last time and risk, having another bad season. This is a new Real Madrid squad. Gules getting more minutes. One thing, however, though, which is, interesting is Rodrigo yet again with 0 minutes. I think Rodrigo's out the door, guys. I honestly don't see a path back into the squad for Rodrigo. I'm looking at the lineup now. I don't see it. Especially when Mbappe comes back fully. With Garcia playing how he's playing, I think Rodrigo's leading, guys. And to who? It's a good question. Arsenal's looking like the favourites potentially. Hopefully for me, Chelsea get back in it. I doubt it though. But, you know, Liverpool might go for another statement signing. That'd be crazy. City, you can never write them off in a signing. PSG might want to strengthen. But yeah, guys, this is a player who, you know, is top class. And he's not a player who's going to want to be sitting on the bench and not getting minutes, that's for sure. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how it develops. But yeah, guys, that's about it for today. We'll see how the Dortmund-Monterrey game plays out. And yeah, I'll be back with you very soon in a bit.